Hello everyone and welcome back to the Down to the Wire podcast. We are on episode 18. 18 weeks in a row we've been doing a weekly update of the latest and greatest in sport from the week that has passed prior to the episode. And I've got to say, I'm not looking forward... From a Liverpool fan's perspective, this is rough this weekend, just gone. Jack, how are you doing? Because I feel like I know your response.
It has been a bad 18 months from a United fans' point of view, but it stays like this, weeks like this, which just make it all worth it.
This is...
Yeah.
Honestly, this weekend is like... I'm just lost for words right now. I know that sounds really dramatic, but... I just can't sum up how I'm feeling at the moment in regards to Liverpool. It's just absolutely brutal. But there we are. If you can tell, I'm a bit downcast about this, but I guess we should move straight on to the football. We're going to be discussing other things perhaps a little bit later on in the podcast, but the football's the main starting point. Liverpool lost to Fulham. Quite badly as well, to be honest.
Yeah.
And before we kind of get into the nitty gritty, I mean, I think I said this to you because we were kind of discussing it as it was on, and I said, teams losing to a team like Fulham, it's not out of the ordinary. But normally, what happens in those sort of matches is like either Fulham will really turn up and Liverpool would be maybe a little bit lethargic, or like say a Fulham. I'm using Fulham because this is the team we played. But like a Fulham or a relegation candidate team will nick a goal and then just put 10 men behind the ball.
Mm-hmm.
But from a Liverpool fan's perspective, Liverpool were outplayed by Fulham. There's no hiding from it. As in, Liverpool were the better team over the course of 90 minutes. Yeah, which is quite depressing, really, to be honest. And I think what makes it even more rough is the fact that we've gone from the highest of highs last season to, like, genuinely, right now I genuinely feel like I've been taken back to 2011. Like, when we had, like...
the glory days.
Round the Real-ish in midfield, Craig Bellamy playing.
Yeah.
Like, it's just bizarre. It's just really, really bizarre. Anyway, that's my opening statement as a Liverpool fan. Go on, slaughter away.
You very much were outplayed by Fulham, which...
Yes, we were.
It wasn't in a sense like Man City playing any other team in a sense, apart from Man United, and, bossing the ball all the way through. Fulham weren't doing that. They were just...
No.
Both teams were attacking. The play was pretty open, but Fulham defended very well. Maybe for the last 20 minutes they parked the bus, but before that, they were just... Their tactic was put 5 men inside of the D, just on the edge of the box, put 5 men there so Liverpool can't go through the middle, and basically anything that went wide wasn't really working for Liverpool, so it was kind of just a game plan which was working for Fulham, and then I wouldn't even say Fulham were just a counter-attacking team, they got the ball, they worked it up, and made the better of the opportunities.
Yeah, I mean... It's a weird one for Liverpool at the moment, as in, when you consider... I know we've kind of touched on this already when we did a bit of a dissection of what's happening to Liverpool, but when you consider the majority of the injuries that we've had have been midfield and defence, our biggest issue seems to be going forward. Now, obviously, I know there's knock-on implications on it. Like, we discussed this, as in, like, Van Dijk gets injured... and Joe Gomez gets injured, and then you're having to drop Fabinho into defence. And that naturally, that's going to affect how the game flows.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, like Mane, Mane has been arguably one of the best players in the Premier League for the past 3 years. And, he had a chance against... Who was it? I think it was a chance against Chelsea. The ball got played in behind, and he just had, like, an A shot. And it was a similar one...
Yeah, similar one against Fulham. Ball came into the box, literally landed on the standing foot as he was trying to shoot, and he just fluffed it and the defender quickly booted it away before he could ready himself.
And this is the thing, you know, like when people say, oh, Thiago's got no goals and no assists, it's like, okay, fair enough, that's not a great... it's not great statistics, but it's hardly like the players in front of him are prolific right now. I would say this is the worst I've seen Mane, Salah and Firmino all at once. Like, don't get me wrong, they've all gone through rough patches. Firmino last year scored his first goal at home in the last game of the season.
Well,
Salah...
You say they've all had rough patches. I don't think Mane and Salah have had a rough patch before. This genuine, to me, as an outside, I mean, maybe I don't focus on it as much, but this is the first time I've noticed.
This is the thing, though. This is the thing, because what normally happens, because of this, all three of them there, normally what happens is that when one of them is not quite at their best, you've got the other two to kind of pick them up a bit. When Salah joined, that first season, Mane had a bit of a slump. As in, Salah was our main man, scoring goal after goal after goal. Mane struggled a little bit. You know, and when I say rough patch, I mean relative to how good they are normally, as in a rough patch for Mane is not scoring in like 3 games. Yeah. Generally, excluding what's happened so far this season, as in a rough patch for Mane or Salah is not scoring for like a handful of games.
The standards quite a lot higher for them, particularly because the last season is like was so insane. He was scoring out, you know, other teams like 2-3 times, you know, as many goals as him. But this year just cannot score.
Yeah, we just look really blunt going forward. Really blunt.
And 6 straight home losses. I understand, like, it is form, and they are getting... Well, they got a win, I think, in one of their away games, but 6 straight home... Like, Anfield has been a fortress for ages. Even when you weren't particularly sensational a couple of years ago. It was like, Anfield was always that sort of, okay, you're playing Liverpool in Anfield, you know you're up for a game. But, I mean... As a United fan, I'm looking forward to watching the next Liverpool home game because I think they're going to make it 7. It's like it genuinely have not 1 ounce of well, I don't know. I don't think confidence is the word, but I don't think Liverpool are going to win their next one at home. Just with the way they're playing, they're just really so blunt up top. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's you know, and again we discussed this, didn't we? And you know, because you said about 6 losses at home, and I said, well, to be fair, you know, like in there you've got Chelsea, Everton, and Man City, and you went, yeah, but you've also got Burnley, Fulham, and Brighton, and I was like, yes, you know, I can't argue with that. And that's what I mean. Is in I think like if Liverpool lost to Chelsea, Everton, and City, you know, obviously you don't want to lose games, but you'd be like, all right, well, fair enough. That's 3 good sides, but as in Burnley, Fulham and Brighton, there's no excuses for that. No. As Liverpool, bear in mind, this is the champions of England right now. And, you know, I've seen lots of, as a Liverpool fan, follow lots of Liverpool fan pages on Twitter. You kind of get in, I guess, a mixture of responses. I saw one that said, this goes beyond injuries, which I think is a fair point, you know, as in... And this is what I was saying to you. To be fair, I feel like I've cooled down a little bit since yesterday. When Liverpool lost, I was ranting a little bit. Rightly so, because I was frustrated as a Liverpool fan, you know, that we'd lost to Fulham. But, it's just messy at the moment. Very messy. And I think it doesn't matter how bad a form you're in. As in, like, when you... Just thinking about some of the players that are on the pitch. Okay, I know he rested a few. He started players like Reece Williams.
But he made 7 changes, he did, from the previous game.
Yeah, he did make 7 changes, but as in, I don't see any issue with that, to be honest with you. As in, if you know, say, for example, our best team, in inverted commas, whatever that team is, you know, say we'd had a rough patch of form and then they'd won 3 on the bounce, and then Klopp had changed it around, I'd be like, oh, well, why have you done that? But it's not like our first team have been vintage right now, so I haven't got any problems with him changing. And they were like fairly logical changes as well. You know, like he brought Milner into midfield. Okay, he's not necessarily going to tear teams apart with his threaded passes, but as in he's an engine, he'll work hard for you, he'll run. So, you know, I don't have any problems with that. Nico Williams, okay, he's not at Trent Alexander-Arnold's level, but as in, again, Trent hasn't exactly been...
I'll be honest, I thought Nico Williams had a particularly poor game against Fulham.
He did have a
He
particularly
gave the
poor
ball
game,
away
but
quite a lot, but it was more noticeable when Trent came on. I know you're just saying that he's not on the same level as Trent, but I mean, Trent came on and the Liverpool team sparked properly. Like he must have got in about 10 crosses into the box within 5 minutes of coming onto the pitch. He was just instant impact. Good crosses as well.
but I guess this is what we're going to go on to in a little bit. As in like Liverpool need. I won't jump the gun, but there's work to be done in the transfer market. But I don't think the changes that were made were the cause of why we lost. But there's enough quality on that pitch to be beating Fulham. It's as simple as that. You're starting Robertson, you're starting Alisson. You've got Thiago. I think Wijnaldum played.
Well, you just look at the Fulham side,
yeah,
and I don't think a single member of that team gets into the Liverpool team.
No,
no. Maybe some of the defenders, perhaps, but you know what I mean. It's like you look at the two sides. I think you very much choose the Liverpool side on paper.
Absolutely, you're starting Salah and Jota up top. That's just with those players alone. You're in with a good shout of winning, or should be in with a good shout of winning. But yeah, it's just I don't know whether perhaps you want to go on to some of the other stats that you've written down here, because I feel like otherwise I'm going to start going on to some of the other points that you've listed later.
Well,
do you want to?
The stats are such to back up some of the other points, but you dropped to 8th. That's 4 points behind Chelsea, who are in 4th. 3 points behind Everton, who are in 5th. But Everton has 2 games in hand. Chelsea have 1 game in hand, so that could grow quite a bit. And you're only.
Am I right in saying that Chelsea's game in hand is Everton right now as they play?
Everton's playing right now. So
and Chelsea are winning right now. So you'd assume that.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. If Chelsea win this game, then they'll be 7 points off top 4. But even if Chelsea do win, Everton could win the other game in hand, and you know what I mean. There's still quite a few teams who could make a semi-significant gap between Liverpool and the top 4. You're looking at least 2 results need to go Liverpool's way to at least Liverpool to be within, a game or 2 shout of making the top 4. But you've scored just 4 in 7 games, 1 clean sheet in the last 10 Prem games. How are you feeling about Klopp?
I think he's got enough credit in the bank.
How long do you think he can last on that, though?
I reckon, until at least the end of the season, an absolute minimum, to be honest. As in, I think this is why. I guess
there's no real good in getting rid of him mid-season, because it's not like anything's going to change.
Well, and the thing is as well, like right now, what's the alternative? Like I think realistically, the alternative is Gerrard.
Yeah, and he's done with Rangers. You can leave him now. He's only got the title. He's got nothing to play for.
No. But what I mean is with the greatest respect to Steven Gerrard, Klopp and Gerrard isn't really a comparison in terms of what they've won, where they are in their careers managerially. I think the worst thing that could happen now is for Liverpool to sack Klopp. I don't think they'd sack Klopp anyway, but if they did, I think the worst thing they could do now is sack Klopp and go and get Gerrard, and then in a year's time, exactly. And I think going off on a little bit of a tangent, but I think that's where Gerrard has benefited. He's been there now for a few years. He's gained a bit of experience. Lampard
crucially
was at Derby for 1 year. Chelsea the next year. He's sacked, and now, to a certain extent, Lampard's a little bit in the managerial wilderness, isn't he?
Yeah, we mentioned this before, didn't we? It's like you've got managers who are sort of the Premier League, top of the table ones. Then you've got those middle table ones who can get them to a certain, close to Europe, but can't take them any further. Then you've got the relegation ones who can get them from there to mid-table, but Lampard doesn't fall into one of those categories because he hasn't any chance.
And that's not criticising Lampard for taking the Chelsea job, as in I think he would have been bonkers not to, but at the same time I think it came a little bit soon. Anyway, that's kind of going off on a little bit of a Gerrard tangent. I think Klopp has got enough credit in the bank, and I think there's a certain amount of Klopp will get criticism, and I think probably rightly so, as in at the end of the day he is our manager, but I think a lot of this downturn in performance has got to rest with the players. I think you've had a lot of players who for 3 or 4 years have turned up, and then all of a sudden they've just disappeared, really. As in like Salah, Mane and Firmino, 4 goals in their last 7 games. I remember Salah was scoring 4 goals in 1 game on his own at points when he first joined, as in that's a complete change in form. So I think that's worth considering. And it's interesting, actually. I saw a quote from Gary Neville that he said on the commentary. I'll read the full quote, but there's one part of it that I'm going to use in this conversation. So he said, this is Gary Neville speaking now. He said, I said a few weeks ago it was acceptable that Liverpool would have a little bit of a... hang on. Bear with me. Get the full quote. I took a screenshot, but annoyingly cut it off. Where are you? Here we go. I said a few weeks ago it was acceptable that Liverpool would have a little bit of a dip and I would go easy on them. We could never do it in the fourth year at United. There was always that dip. This isn't a dip. This is a collapse. They're woeful at the moment in every single way. Now, I don't want to take the full quote out of context, but I think it's interesting when he said we could never do it in the fourth year at United. There was always a dip. Mm-hmm. And that's coming from somebody who played for Sir Alex Ferguson and one of the most consistent United teams, or one of the most consistent teams in English and world football,
And notably, he said in the fourth year there was a dip. This is only Liverpool. Well,
yes.
To be fair, it is Liverpool's fourth year of being good in a sense. Like you'd be like a point off City on the other two.
Exactly.
But it's only their first since winning the league, and it's like usually you want to build on that momentum. You know what I mean? You're always working towards it. When you get it, you want to keep the momentum, and it's gone straight, isn't it?
But this is the thing, and I guess this is kind of going into the whole reinforcements thing, as in this is Liverpool's fourth year. I think when you think about it, this is Liverpool's fourth year under Klopp. Mm-hmm. Isn't it? So you had the first year where he came in and Liverpool were a bit in the doldrums. Well, kind of 4.5, but roughly 4. Then they had the next season where they qualified for the Champions League. The following season they got to the Champions League final. The season after that they they won the Champions League and lost to the league 1 point, and the most that there's ever been for a second place on 97 points. Then they've won the league. That's nearly 4.5, 5 years now. And all of a sudden, it's kind of come crashing down. So, from a Liverpool fan's perspective, I think to say Klopp out, it's a tricky one. It is a really tricky one because I don't think you can blindly say, oh no, Klopp should never go. Never, never, never. But I think he's done enough and he's shown enough.
Do you think if he keeps the job and... Mm-hmm. Goes to next season. Do you think if he's not in a top 4 position by Christmas next year, do you think they'll sack him? Because
I think it'll depend on where the other teams are at. Okay. Because I think if the other teams are incredibly competitive, I think the owners would look at that objectively and be like, okay, we may not be in the top 4, but it's highly competitive that season. Mm-hmm. I still think. It's tricky, there's a lot of what ifs there, isn't there? But yeah, so basically, in summary, I've waffled on a bit there. If you said to me Klopp out, I'd say no.
No. Okay.
Right now, I still think he's got enough credit in the bank.
Well, going on from Klopp, we've mentioned how bad the strike force is. Are you Firmino, Salah, Mane out, or
not? I wouldn't say I want them gone, but I think Firmino's days as a striker are numbered.
Okay.
I think for me, if you're going to play Firmino, you've either got to play him as an attacking mid or kind of like a pseudo midfielder kind of thing. I don't think you can play him through the middle. He just doesn't score enough.
You think he's going to have that bit of the Wayne Rooney about him, where he just works his way backwards?
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, because, the one thing, in general, you'd never criticise Firmino for is a lack of work ethic.
He's a workhorse.
And he's a creative player as well, as in, like when you see some of the things that he can produce on a football pitch, you're like, wow, that's something special. But, and I don't know whether perhaps there's an element of, as in, like, again, we were discussing this, and last season, there was an element to which Firmino got away with it, firstly because last season he was offering something else, which I feel like he hasn't offered the same amount of this year.
And Liverpool were winning. It's like, a win.
Yeah, and Salah and Mane were scoring for fun. Salah and Mane were scoring for fun. As soon as Salah and Mane have stopped scoring, unfortunately, when you go, oh well, we're not scoring goals, the first position you look to is your number 9. So maybe Firmino's been a bit scapegoated for general lack of creativity and goal scoring performance from the whole of the front three, possibly. But as in, I think you can look at last season as well and go, right, well, Firmino doesn't score enough goals. I guess what I'm saying is, like, you know, I've seen some things where, you know, like, and again, these are, you know, it's people's opinions, obviously, but like the fan pages going, oh, anyone who suggests that Liverpool could sell or should sell one of the front three are deluded. And I'm kind of very much in the mindset of, you know, if the price was good, you know, I do think you have got to consider it, you know, and see what options are out there, because, you know, I don't think you can rely on the same people forever. You have got to start looking to the future, as in Salah and Mane kind of they're 29 now, I believe. You know, so you have got to, and again, this is where the dilemma comes in, and this is kind of going on to reinforcements. The only alternative to those three in the front three is Jota. And
as good as Jota is, it's not good enough just to have one guy. You know, some of the classic good teams like City and United, of more recent, they've got like 5 or 6 attackers each. Minimum.
Well, you look at City, like, you know, they drop Sterling, they can bring in Mahrez. They, you know, Aguero's been out for I don't know how long. They just play Gabriel Jesus for a couple of months.
Well, Guardiola needed a goal against United on the weekend, and he left Aguero on the bench because he thought the other players were good enough. That's the level.
Yeah, exactly, and you know, and as in, you know, Kevin De Bruyne has been injured for a good few weeks. Gundogan's there doing the business. You know, and City are like that throughout the squad. I think this is where Liverpool... I guess what I'm saying is I feel like 4 years of success with minimum investment. Because when you think about it, right, Liverpool had that one big summer where they bought Fabinho, Alisson, and who else did they buy? Keita, I think, possibly. And then the January before they bought Van Dijk, right? Liverpool, the biggest signing that Liverpool have made since then is probably Jota for 40 million.
But no other significant signings, particularly first team signings.
Exactly. City won the league and they went and signed Mahrez for 60 million.
Well, they bought Mahrez
after
as
they won the league.
Replacement because someone got injured, wasn't it? It was, I think, like Sané went down injured after the season. They went, well, we'll just sign Mahrez then. And
this is
as
what I mean.
Much as they got a lot of slack for it, saying like, you know, you can't just be buying players willy-nilly for 60 mil just because you got one injury. In essence, if you look at it now and you see what happened to Liverpool, you go, well, actually, I don't blame them for spending 60 mil. Like, if you're going to replace and get someone good, but also you need to replace people.
I think this is where, you know, as in, I think this summer there needs to be, I don't think there needs to be a full-on overhaul, as in, I think, you know, there's enough quality there, and you've still got Van Dijk, you've got Trent and you've got Robertson. Obviously, you got Joe Gomez as well, but I'm talking about the ones, the undroppables. Then, for example, you know, you still got Alisson. You know, so you've got a good base for a defence there. Henderson, I still think is excellent. Thiago doesn't turn into a bad player overnight. You know, Salah, Mane, they're still class players, as in they're just not performing well at the moment. But if there's anything that I think this season has shown, is that really what needs to happen, like, for example, I said to you, didn't I? Trent had that absolute stinker against Southampton, where I think he lost the ball something ridiculous, like 38 times. What really needs to happen is Klopp needs to then, for the next game, go, right, Trent, you're on the bench. You know, you've got to work your way back in, and then he plays someone else. They haven't necessarily got to be better than Trent, or equal to Trent, but at least in the same realms as Trent. Like, and that's no slight on Nico Williams. Nico Williams is very young, but at the same time, you've got to have competition in your squad. And I think this is where Liverpool have been lacking. And I don't think that's because Klopp has said, "Oh well, this is my team and this is fine." I think there's been an element of with the... Sorry, I feel like I've done a lot of talking. I feel like I've basically talked for 25 minutes. But, you know, Liverpool they've rested on their laurels a little bit, I think. They won the league, and I think there was well, it's all right. It's the same team, it's the same manager, therefore it's going to be exactly the same next. And that's not how football works.
And even the guys you have put in, like Tzimakis, it's like, okay, there's some cover for Robertson, but we've barely seen anything of him, probably because Robertson's one of the few players who's not been injured this season, but also he's not...
And I think generally Robertson's actually played pretty well, to be honest.
But on the other side of things, Tzimakis, I don't think he screams of a player who's ready to come first team football. I'm not saying your replacements always need to be ready to play first team football, but again, you compare it with Man City, they've got 2 or 3 teams worth of players that could instantly be slotted in and play first team football. And I think, I mean, it's no wonder you see them go on these huge 21 game winning streaks when they can rest players at will. I mean, theirs is an incredible luxury, which I don't think we'll always see in the Premier League. Or no, unless we do, every team's going to have it. It's one or the other. It's either they can't sustain it or everyone's going to be able to sustain it. But you've just got to... I mean, at the end of the day, you've got to compete with what the best are doing. And if the best are doing that, you've got to copy it. Otherwise, it's like you can't compete.
Yeah. And, just going on that reinforcement, there's a quote from one of the writers of The Telegraph. And they said, this is what they've said in response to Liverpool. So they've said, there comes a time to react to circumstances and to protect the asset. There has to be an element of catastrophe planning. Maybe a good enough target in January could not be landed, but did FSG really try? So they're talking in relation to a centre-half now. FSG have been guilty of putting the brakes on since Jurgen Klopp brought back not just the European Cup, but the Premier League. That manifested itself most clearly in the January transfer window.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I think we were saying on the podcast, Liverpool had all these injuries, and it was... I mean, I did tongue-in-cheek at the time say Liverpool aren't going to make top 4 because they've got no defenders, but it's very clearly manifested itself as such as like, hang on, they only had 3, and they still went, no, we're not gonna.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like sometimes in a weird way, really desperately just go, we're going to have to sign somebody, regardless who it is. We're going to spend over the odds. I mean, United kind of did that with Maguire. It's like we kind of wanted Maguire, but in the end we got ripped off because there wasn't very many other options, and we needed a centre back.
We've got to get him.
So we spent the 18 mil or whatever it was.
Yeah, and I think there was perhaps a little bit of naivety from FSG because Liverpool had been so successful with that one big investment. They just kind of thought, well, Klopp will work his magic. It's almost like Klopp has been a victim of his own success, really. In that scenario, because Klopp has done so well with the group of players, FSG go, you can play Henderson at centre half and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
I think that's the that kind of sums it up quite well for me. I think. I don't think it's from FSG. I don't think it's been a reluctance to spend money, but I think in a weird way they're almost right. They've kind of gone, well, this is the team you had. This is what you've done with that team. Do
it again.
Do it again. Yeah. As in, and it's almost like a yearly budget for something, isn't it? As in, it's like, right, well, this time you spent this much money, and this was the result. We're going to give you a little bit less money, save money for ourselves, and go and do the same thing again. Which, from a business perspective, it's a shrewd business model, but football doesn't work like that. I mean, unfortunately,
you even consider last season. It's like Liverpool had practically no injuries, apart from Alisson, who got a few at the early stages. They had
you're right.
Nothing, particularly in the outfield, nothing. And it was, unprecedented how few injuries they had. And then you come to this season, it's almost like doubled down. It's like all the ones you didn't get last year, we're going to give you this year, and the allotment you should have this year. It's like
and it's and this is what I was saying a few weeks back. It's a perfect storm, and you've had the injuries, yes, but I think what those injuries have done is mean that the kind of our squad depth has been tested and has been found wanting. Players who perhaps, because our first team had done so well, they've kind of gone under the radar. Like, for example, Keita. Keita, basically for me this season, this sort of season where we're having so many injuries, it would have been the perfect time for Naby Keita to go in and go, right, that is my starting spot. I am taking that midfield shirt, and this is my position now. He hasn't done it. Okay, he's had a few injuries himself, but when he has played, he hasn't looked like a £50 million central midfielder. We've barely seen Oxlade-Chamberlain.
I tell you what, the player of all the players who aren't starting players that have come in and sort of tried to stake a claim, I feel like Shaqiri's done the best of a lot of them, and he's probably got the hardest job to do that, because I don't think... I mean, Klopp and him had a bit of a falling out before, so I don't know if Shaqiri's really ever going to be able to get a starting spot there because of that history. But, I mean, he was the only player who looked like creating or doing anything against Fulham on the weekend. He was taking prospective shots, which on balance probably weren't going to go in, but some of them were particularly close, and to be honest, you see some of the other guys and you're like, they're just not gambling. They've got no confidence to go and smack a ball. It's like, sometimes you just got to hit it and go and see what happens.
Yeah, and I think, again, Firmino is out of form. What you could really do with is going, right, Firmino, you have this week off, we're going to bring in this player.
Well,
what's our option? Divock Origi.
that's not
it's
good.
it's just not, and again, that's no disrespect to Divock Origi, but as in, he hasn't shown, he showed a bit of promise in that season where we won the Champions League. You were thinking, he's going to kick on, and he just hasn't. As in, he's gone the other direction. So I think there's a lot of things happening at once at Liverpool, which has caused this kind of catastrophic downturn.
You mentioned that they haven't really got quality replacements for players. When you talk about reinforcements for next year, maybe not players in particular, but what positions do you think, how many of what position do you think they need? I mean, obviously they need another 2 centre-backs, probably, a right-back.
I would say two centre-halves, a right-back, a striker, and a winger, I would say.
Fair enough, okay.
I think in the midfield we're looking all right, despite a potential lack of creativity. I think you've got Henderson, you've got Fabinho, and this is the thing, I guess it's something to consider. Because Fabinho and Henderson have been drawn out of the midfield depth has also been tested.
But to be honest, though, you probably actually do have enough depth there, but it's just the quality has not come through.
In midfield?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we've got a lot of depth in midfield, but as in, again, like Curtis Jones, very young, you're having to play Curtis Jones probably a lot more than you would really want to. As in, he is still a very young player. But, you are right. But, in midfield, you've got Henderson, Thiago, Fabinho, Curtis Jones. Okay, I know James Milner is the wrong side of 30, but I still think he can do a job for Liverpool, to be honest. In midfield, you've got good players there. You've got Oxlade-Chamberlain as well, and I know I said where's he been, but I think I rate Oxlade-Chamberlain. I'll be honest. I know sometimes he doesn't have end product, but yeah. In defence, like you said, you need 2 centre-halves, you need cover for Trent, and really, when I say you need a striker and a winger, you need cover for that front three in general.
And those, in a sense, cover, but they can't be backups. They've got to be people who can genuinely contend. Yeah. Because that's the thing, you can't just play, you haven't got 11 players, you haven't got 11 first-team players. Most teams have about 15 to 16 first-team players. And then you've got your bench guys. You can't just be going
you need another Jota, basically. I think it's as simple as that. And you need another player who is a similar level to what Jota has been.
I tell you what Liverpool need. They need to go out there and go, we're going to sign Haaland. And just almost put that stamp on everybody else and go, we can still do it. We can still sign the big guys and we're going to dominate.
Josh said the exact same thing to me on Saturday. He said Liverpool need to go out and sign Haaland. And... on a different note from that, one of the things that Liverpool are known for is their delivery from right back and left back.
Yeah.
Imagine how many goals we'd score if we had a big number 9 in the box.
I've been saying it for years. Olivier Giroud is exactly the player every top 6 side needs. He is not fast. But, the French squad always praise him because he enables other players to do this stuff. And I feel that's what Firmino did for a while. He didn't score goals, but he enabled other people to go about doing that sort of stuff. Yeah. And I feel that's what Giroud could do, but I don't think he said it. But yeah.
No, but I guess what I'm saying is we cross the ball so much to relatively small wingers and Firmino, if we had someone like Haaland in there, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that we're going to get Haaland. This is just a dream scenario, I guess. But if we were to get someone like Haaland, that would be immense. But
to be honest, whoever gets Haaland instantly becomes a Champions League contender.
Yes.
Because him alone, definitely. You see, I don't know if you saw the Bayern Dortmund game. I didn't watch it in itself, but I said, I could see us on. And then I was like, Haaland scores 2. And then in response, Lewandowski goes and scores 3. It's like, good gracious, these two are just, they are on level, Haaland and Lewandowski. And it's good to see an upcoming guy like Haaland, particularly at his age. And I'm annoyed because United did want him. And they went, no, we're not going to spend that extra little bit. And it's like, it was so obvious he was going to be good. And he is good.
Yeah,
it's like, you kind of just want him to go out there and go, we haven't done a big signing for a while. Let's go buy the best striker in the world right now. And they'd be like, yeah, here we go. But I definitely so.
Yeah.
Finishing off on Liverpool, though, do you think they'll make top 4, firstly? Because they are... Well, they could be 7 points off if Chelsea win their game in hand.
The only this is going to sound really pessimistic, but I'm being completely honest. The only thing that gives me real hope is how topsy-turvy this Premier League season has been. If you go in based on how Liverpool are playing, absolutely not. It's not happening. There doesn't seem to have been a sign of a turnaround right now. That's not to say there won't be, but as things stand at the moment, I can't see top 4. And that really hurts me to say. Obviously, as a Liverpool fan, it would, but it hurts me more because I remember on this podcast you jokingly said, "What if Liverpool don't finish in the top 4?" And I very naively said, "Oh, well, that'll never happen."
Yeah.
And here we are. So yeah.
And do you think missing out on the top 4 will have any long-term implications for them? Because I mean, firstly, just coming down to signing players could be an issue. But do you think anyone would? I'm not going to say jump ship, but do you think there's anybody who goes, perhaps I go and move to Real Madrid, for instance, because the players have got that quality and probably allure about them that some of those big teams would go, yeah, we'll fancy our chances.
I mean, I think, to be honest, I think a big factor in this is that Liverpool have finally broken their duck of winning the Premier League. I think that's a huge factor because I think before that, Liverpool were kind of that nearly men, I guess, is probably the best way. And like you'd go to Liverpool and it would be like it was almost like for players like Coutinho and Suarez, it was like, oh, this is a stepping stone to Barcelona and Real Madrid.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the case with Liverpool anymore. Even if they weren't to get into
that's the thing.
Champions League.
I wouldn't put them on the same level as Barca and Madrid. I don't know, it's just my person. But it's usually before, as you were saying with the step in, it's like it was a step. There was a clear gap between the two of them. Now, I just feel like they're probably about 75% closer of that gap between them. It's like, it is. I still feel it's an improvement, but it's not a big enough improvement that anyone would go, I'll jump over there.
Well, and I guess, I think the thing was before as well, as in like when you were a Liverpool player, you'd go to, the draw to go into Barca would be, are you competing for the Champions League?
And you guarantee trophies as well, and in domestically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas at Liverpool, you were looking at Liverpool, like when Coutinho was there, and you were going, well, they seem to be quite a way off a title, Premier League, and therefore they probably seem to be a little bit way off a Champions League as well. Again, we've won the Champions League, we've won the Premier League, so I think that kind of breaking that duck is really important in that respect. I think because it shows that there is a philosophy in place. I still think, despite the struggles, I still think players would want to play for Klopp. I really do.
If he's still there,
he'll still be there at the end of the season.
Most likely.
And I do, well, I think the draw of Real Madrid and Barcelona isn't what it once was. As in, I think Barcelona are very much in a difficult scenario right now. As in, I don't think they could afford to sign any one of our top players, to be honest. And I don't think Real Madrid is quite the prospect. As in, now that Ronaldo's not there, I don't think it quite has the same draw. As in, you can see by the fact that Atletico are kind of turning things around in La Liga and putting things on his head. So obviously not finishing in the top 4 financially, it has an impact. The draw of certain players, it'll have an impact, but I don't think it's as big as it would have been for Liverpool had they not won a title in the last season, I guess is the best way to put it. Like if you look at Chelsea, for example, as in, I know they've not. Were they in the Champions League last season?
Yeah.
No, they weren't.
I think they were. I think being sneakily always consistently in there, but like scraping it on occasion, just being that fourth or third place team.
You know, I think I think people would happily join a project at Liverpool now, whereas before they possibly wouldn't have done. Mm-hmm. And I think there is also the thing, like, and I've kept telling myself this, is in when Liverpool dropped out of the top 4 last time around, like, when I say dropped out, as in, like, they were out of it for about 10 years, or it felt like 10 years.
I think it was quite that long. But yeah, go on.
No, it was nowhere near that long.
About 4 or 5 at most.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't even.
But as in, there was also the additional factor of the financial issue as well. Mm-hmm. So we dropped out of the Champions League, and then your club's going into administration. So it's like it doubles down then, because you're not getting the money from the Champions League, and then you can't invest to get yourself back into the Champions League. Whereas that right now for Liverpool doesn't seem to be as much of an issue. As in, I'm not saying we could go and spend money like Man City do, but I think there's enough finances there to kind of back ourselves, despite the fact we're not in the Champions League.
That's fair enough. You speak of teams that possibly have more allure than Liverpool. Should we go on to Man City, Man United then? Hey!
I'm not going to grace that with a comment.
United beaten.
So what we've done there for the first 40 minutes is just line up the nails in the coffin, and then for the next 20 we're just going to hammer them home.
Yeah.
Oh, this is brutal. Go on.
I remember we were chatting last night, and we were talking about, you know, we'll see how far ahead of Man United, Man City are by this game, because, you know what I mean, it was like there was that gap, but it was like, okay, how much better are they actually? And it turns out they're not. Man United win 2-0. I mean, I was loving it. I mean, to be honest, the cards dealt our way very nicely, with Gabriel Jesus just deciding to clip Antonio Martial in the box. Anthony Martial, rather, in the box with about 4 or 5 guys around him. It was like he was going nowhere, and he just went forwards tackle in the box. Yeah, just go for it. And I don't know why he did it. And instantly, Man United get a penalty within 1 minute. They're up 1-0. Dream start for United, particularly about all the clean sheets we've been getting. Like, everyone's commented how we haven't really done anything against any of the top 6 sides, but at the same time, we've had so many clean sheets against them, and I mean, you look at some of the United teams that have been really good of late. Well, not of late, more like a decade ago now. But you had Van der Sar in goal, Ferdinand and Vidic at the back, Evra and Gary Neville as the fullbacks, and it was just solid defence. I mean, Van der Sar broke the record for the longest consecutive time in game without conceding a goal. I think it was over 1,100 minutes by the end. It was insane how long it went for, and it's like, I think we got the foundations of something which could be built upon for next year, I'm hoping. I mean, I just loving the fact that we're getting the clean sheets all the time, but, I mean, stopping City's consecutive win streak, not just with not with a draw, but with an actual win ourselves. And it leaves City 11 points clear. Do you think this is just a flash in the pan result, or do you think that United could be considered contenders next year?
I mean, I wouldn't say flash in the pan, because I don't think United have been, you know, it's not like United have been dreadful and then they've just won out of nowhere. As in, I guess the reason why this result is perhaps surprising is because of how good City have been. You know, it's in 21 games in a row. That's almost unheard of. But I don't know whether. I mean, it was hardly a vintage performance from City, and you know, like you said, the first goal is a bit of a silly thing from Gabriel Jesus. The second goal, as good as it is from Luke Shaw, and there's no denying that it is excellent. You know, he runs about 50 metres with the ball uncontested, so it's not exactly it doesn't shine particularly well on Cities, and you know, it wasn't a particularly great result. I think what it does show is that there has been progress at United. Definitely. I'm not sure, and the thing is, this season has been so topsy-turvy. I don't, you know, as in, like, when you look at, because what's the gap to to Liverpool now, as in United. I think before the game yesterday, so with the game in hand, it was probably about, was it like 6 points, something like that?
Let me get it up. Here we
Let's
go.
have a look at the gap.
Man United are on 54 now, Liverpool on 43. So before it would have been 51 to 43. So 8 points before the game.
Yeah, there we go. Okay, so eight points before the game, which considering, Liverpool are having arguably their worst season probably in about a decade, and United are probably having one of their best. 8 points isn't, and that's not detracting from, that's not me saying that Liverpool are up there. I guess what I'm saying is it just shows how kind of weird this season has been. So I guess as a result of that, I don't really know where every team stands.
The frustrating thing about Man United is that we are now 11 points off City, but we drew with Palace, we've lost to Sheffield United, and I got a feeling we drew to somebody else towards the bottom. I think it was West Brom, and it's like you look at those and you're like, oh, if we were as clinical as City, in terms of this 21 game. I mean, obviously they go 21. I'm not expecting United to go 21.
Yeah.
But if you just do the bread and butter basics and win those games. Instantly, you're within 3 or 4 points of them, and it's a genuine title race towards the end. So it is frustrating on that side. But I mean, to be honest, one of the good things about United I'm liking at the moment is that we can see where the problems are. Martial he has man of the match on the weekend, and to be fair, he was very good. But
this is honestly, and I don't want to take it back to Liverpool, but that's like the complete opposite of what Liverpool have right now. You can look at United can look at their team and go, right, these are where the issues are. This is where we need to change things. And I guess that's what the slightly more worrying thing is for Liverpool, is that it's kind of like.
Well, that's the thing. Until you get your guys back from injury, you don't know. You don't know if they are playing bad.
Anyway, sorry. Let's not talk about Liverpool. Let's not talk about Liverpool anymore. We talked about them a lot. Sorry, go back to United.
But as good as Martial was in that one game, still there's better options out there. I mean, I'll be honest. I was craving for United to sign Haaland last season, I thought, or Jadon Sancho. And it's like, as much as they would just be spending money to show off almost, as that, we can, and we always will be able to spend money because that's just the way the club is. It's like, I just want them to go out there and do it, just to go, hey everybody, look right here. Look right here, we're still signing big players and we're still signing the best, you know what I mean? I don't know if they'll be able to. I'm really hoping the allure of playing for Man United, especially with the way they are playing at the moment, where if you've just got I don't know when the last time was that United actually conceded a goal, but when you've got something like a platform like that to operate off of, instantly it opens a scenario where it's like, if we can do one or two things, sure, this. Like, I'd love to have somebody else alongside McTominay instead of Fred. But thing is, I don't want to get rid of Fred though. I'm happy for him to be a bench player. But you know, it's when you can just add on top. You can have Paul Pogba there when he comes back from injury. You just got a little bit here and there of players that can come in and do bits and bobs, and it's lovely as a Man United fan to. I'm not going to say we're at the top. We're not back. We're definitely not. But we're on the right path for a change.
I guess that's what I would say, and I feel like you're definitely going in the right direction. I think it's difficult to say exactly where you are, because I do think, and this isn't United's fault, this is nobody's fault, I do think, this season is very much about being best of the rest. I don't think, like when you consider, forget about Liverpool last season, as in even the couple of seasons before, you had City kind of getting like 98 points and 101 points in the league, and you had,
City can still get to, I reckon, 90 points this season. There's 30 on offer for them still remaining. I reckon, are they going to lose 5 more points? That would be a loss and a draw for the remainder of the season out of that final 10. I think they can get to 90, if I'm honest.
Yeah, maybe.
And I look at the United, and it's like, as much as they are 11 points off, they've only lost 4 games. City have lost 3. And then the next jump up is all the way up to 6, then 7. You know what I mean? It's like, I feel like as much as United are doing best of the rest, we've got a crazy amount of draws. I mean, you've got to go all the way down to 15th to find another team with as many draws. So I feel like if we can just sharpen up that little bit and turn some of those. I mean, we've had about 4 draws in our last 6 games or something. It's like, but we've had clean sheets in almost all of them. It's like we conceded 2 in our last 8. And it's like when you get those sort of small little nuggets of facts where you're just like, oh, there's something that you can really build off of there, and you just go out there, take advantage, because we didn't back up Ollie last year. Like, we bought Donny van der Beek, and as much as, you know, you see a team like Liverpool and you're like, okay, maybe they, you know, should have gone out of their way to sign some extra guys up top. I didn't feel like we needed Van der Beek, even if we do need a bit of cover on some positions. That I didn't feel like Van der Beek was the guy. And it's like, if you just go out there this transfer window now, come in, and they go, let's properly back him, not just do some half-hearted, we'll buy 1 or 2, properly get some players in there. And I honestly think we'd have a genuine shot. It would require City to drop quite a few still, you know, because we're not going to be flawless, but it would just be nice to see us sign good players with the intent of going forward, rather than signing good players just to try and get us out of the mess of being outside of the top 4. I want us to establish top 4 and work from that forward.
Fair enough.
In terms of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, do you think he's done enough now to sort of ward off those critics? Because I remember he had he won 8 games, won them all, and that's how he got the United job. Then he went the next day and probably didn't win one, and it was like, good gracious, what have we done? But he's steadied the ship. Whenever his job seems in doubt, United performances seem to spike. And to be fair to him, he's up to 2nd place in a league, just after beating arguably the best team in the league at the moment. It's like, do you think he's done enough to ward off those critics?
I mean, ultimately, I don't think you'll have done enough until you win the silverware. And when I say silverware, I mean Champions League or Premier League, not FA Cup or Mickey Mouse Trophy or Europa.
Do you not think the Europa?
No, not with the amount of money that he spent. You know, as in, I know it's not this season, but as in, you know, he spent 80 million on Maguire, 50 million on Wan-Bissaka, 30 million on Bruno Fernandes, and that's a lot of money invested.
So on a squad though, which did have quite a lot of holes when he joined, in terms of had guys like Sanchez who were
No, I guess what I'm saying is, I think,
and some of that money is obviously reinvested from Lukaku.
Yes.
I mean, I was surprised how much money we got for him. It was like 70 odd mil. I was genuinely shocked.
Yeah, crazy.
Completely real that.
No, that's not a criticism of Solskjaer, but I guess what I mean is that automatically then sets the bar higher for what he has to do to. And I think for United, you know, the Europa League is, you know, a much of a muchness really. As in, I mean, maybe I'm being a bit bizarre, but I would be thinking, in your current circumstances, I'd be thinking I wouldn't really be that bothered whether we won the Europa League or not. I would rather us kind of focus on the league and just try and stick it to City between now and the end of the season.
I get what you mean. Yeah, and to be fair, it is still quite tight in terms of to fall out of the top 4. I think it's 8 points.
Exactly. That's what I mean. Is in I don't think, and this is again going back to what I was saying. You know, like you said, do you think Liverpool will get top 4? The thing that gives me hope is the fact that the league has been so mental this year that who knows what's going to happen there. So, yeah, I mean, I would say that ultimately I don't think Solskjaer is going to prove his critics wrong. Saying that, you said rightfully ward off critics. I think on warding them off, I think you probably could argue that he has. You know, because at the end of the day, like, Mourinho had that one season where he finished 2nd to City, but as in the gap was enormous. So as in it was like, oh, well done, you finished 20-something points behind the winners. Then after that, they kind of dropped off. As in no United manager has really been as close as Solskjaer has right now.
Yeah.
When you think about it. Sorry, since Ferguson left.
Yeah. Oh.
Let's put it that way. So, I think in that sense, yes, but I think in order to kind of fully silence those critics, I think he has to win something. It's the exact same argument that's put to Brendan Rodgers, I think.
Yeah,
you know,
see that.
And it's the same for like even before Liverpool won the the Champions League and the Premier League, like, despite the fact that Jurgen Klopp had won multiple Bundesliga titles, got to a Champions League final with Dortmund, he came in, and I remember so many memes of, like, Jose Mourinho, this many titles, Sir Alex Ferguson, this many titles, Ancelotti, this many titles, Jurgen Klopp, I give great hugs. And that's having won the Bundesliga twice and got to a Champions League final with a team where he hasn't had much funding. So I think ultimately to completely shut the critics up, he has to win something big.
That's fair enough.
But I think that's probably the same for most managers, really. You're always going to get those critics until you win something big. In the Premier League, anyway.
Yeah. Should we go on to our highlight of the week before doing the next topic, just so we spread it out a bit more, I think?
Yeah, go on then.
Oh. Do you want to go first? Or
I'll go first, because I feel like I need a bit of cheering up. Actually, no, you go first, because yours kind of follows on from what we've just been discussing.
Yeah, mine was Man United beating City 2-0. I'm just ecstatic.
Hey!
It was just just what I wanted.
My one was a tweet from the President of the Republic of Namibia. And this is what it says. We, the supporters of Liverpool at LFC, it was a tweet obviously, at LFC, have been walking alone for a while now. Sadly, we are becoming orphans because our team is dying. Very overdramatic.
Does he speak for all Liverpool fans?
Not really, I don't think. Well, he doesn't speak for me, I wouldn't say.
No.
I was just like, can you imagine like Boris Johnson like coming out and saying something along those lines? Weird. There we are. That was my that kind of, to be honest with you, that kind of shows you where I'm at as a sports fan this week. As in, that made me chuckle, and that's about as good as it got for a Liverpool fan.
Fair.
There we are. Right, should we move on to Spurs Palace?
Yeah. Kane and Bale got a brace.
I was about to say Gaza Bale is back.
Yeah, just in time for the Euros.
Yes.
I mean, I'm glad.
Come on, Wales.
I am so glad the Euros have been delayed a year, because it means we get Bale in form rather than what he was last year. Do you think Spurs can contend for top 4? I mean, they were 2 points off Chelsea. I think they are now 5 points off because Chelsea have won.
Jack, I think every man and his dog can contend for top 4 this season, to be honest.
You see, I feel like they were quite a bit off. I feel like, they've won their last 3 games, and they are genuinely very tight with the top 4.
Well,
yeah, there we go.
Let me put it to you this way, right? You said to me, can Liverpool make the top 4? And I said, purely on the basis of every team around is just going nuts and dropping points and then gaining points, Liverpool can.
Mm-hmm.
Spurs are 3 points ahead of Liverpool with a game in hand. So, yeah, I guess they probably could make top 4, in full honesty. Just based purely on that logic. And they seem to be hitting form at a kind of good time, in all honesty.
Yeah, that's true. They still got to play United and Everton and Leicester. Leicester being the last game of the season. I mean, with the way it's shaping up with... I mean, I'm not saying Leicester going downhill, because I think their form is probably about as good as United's, but particularly with Chelsea on the rise, do you think that it could end up being last game of the season Champions League playoff between Leicester and Tottenham, if they sort of correlate their form together? Because, I mean,
maybe
it could be in...
Maybe. Well,
love
as
that.
in, I certainly think if Spurs have still got to play Leicester, I think that could be... well, saying that, assuming that United stay roughly where they are, as in you'd assume that out of those 3, Everton and Leicester are the ones who are properly in the top 4 fight. As in, that little round of fixtures, or those 3 fixtures, could be huge for each of them, to be honest. As in, it could literally be like, we're playing to win and enter the top 4.
Yeah. To be fair, I think Spurs have to win at least 2 of those 3 games, the United, Everton, Leicester.
Right.
I mean, because the other 2, you know what I mean? The others will get away if they don't. That's the kind of scenario you were in whenever you're the team that's behind. Although Everton... Oh, I don't know why I put Everton. Leicester are actually out of the Europa League at this stage. And Spurs are still in it, I believe.
That's a plus.
So
that's a plus.
that could come back to bite Spurs in a way in the long run.
Yeah, definitely.
So.
Absolutely. And that's why the Europa League is just not ideal, really.
It's not ideal, but at the same time, it could be worth going for Spurs. Because if you win it,
Well,
automatic qualification.
Yes. Yeah, that's the plus of being in the Europa League, isn't it? It's just
Oh, I tell you what, it could be
a good
full
backup.
circle. If either City or Liverpool win the Champions League and Spurs go on to win the Europa, instantly fourth place doesn't get Champions League anymore. So, who knows? Chelsea could miss out after making Spurs miss out a few years ago for that very same scenario.
Brutal.
That would be funny. Speaking of Europe,
Here we are.
there's
Yes.
a new Champions League. Well, they're calling it Champions League reform, but it's a new Champions League format proposed, which is actually meant to be, well, it's backed, it is, by the European Club Association president, Andrea Agnelli. I don't know who he is, but he sounds very formal and official, but he's backing a new 36-team Swiss model.
I've read about this.
Genuinely, I like the sound of it. I mean, for those who haven't heard about it, the current format will stay till 2024, which is when they decide on what the new one's going to be. But this Swiss model replaces the 32-team group stage format. So the old one is a group stage followed by the knockout rounds. Instead, it's got a 36-team league format instead, where all 36 teams are put in one big league. Each club will play 10 games, 5 home, 5 away, and those 10 games will be sort of systematic based on a sort of seeding or ranking. Every team will be ranked 1 from 36. I think it's probably, because I know UEFA's got their own little formula for, every team's ranked pretty much in Europe, depending on what they've done in the most previous 5 years, what their current form is, all that sort of stuff. So they'll rank everybody 1 to 36, and then, so you just play 10 random teams throughout there, probably systematic, as I was saying, and the top 8 of those 36 instantly go into the knockouts. The next 16, I imagine it'll be top versus bottom plays, you know, and all the way up to the middle, will play each other to get the other 8 teams that make the knockouts, and the 12 teams that don't even make that are automatically eliminated, and then you just do a knockout tournament straight from a round of 16 stage. So, you know, it sounds, I mean, by the sounds of things, quite good. What do you think of it?
I mean, look, I think it's definitely better than this idea of a European Super League. I think this is a much fairer way of doing things.
I mean, particularly because big teams will play more big teams. You'll play 10 teams every season.
But at the same time, it's not a case of, it's a European Super League because we've decided who the biggest teams are, as in you still have to kind of qualify for this.
And there's still 36 teams in it, so they haven't excluded.
Do we know where those additional teams are going to be coming from?
Well, the 32 will all qualify for this 32 in the same format they were before. So, you know, league winners instantly will get in, you know, certain nations get an extra few spaces automatically. Some have to go through that qualifying rigmarole to get to this stage. But those extra 4 teams, they haven't decided how they're going to be chosen, but there's apparently a suggestion that those 4 places will be given based on historical success in a way. So, for instance, you see Juventus this season, they've not been particularly well. They may not make the top 4 or whatever it is. I don't know how many you get in Italy, but they've qualified for the Champions League every year since 2011, 2012. So missing out for them could be catastrophic. But when you've got this sort of small safety net, you know, like they're ranking everyone 1 through 36, perhaps on there, they go, who are the 4 highest ranked teams that haven't made it? I mean, who knows? They could end up going, hey, England have a 5th. Hey, Spain have a 5th.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I'll be honest with you. I would rather them do that than do this kind of historical success, because I feel like there's a danger that could kind of turn into what I didn't like about the European Super League, where it's kind of like, you're in the elite club because we've decided that you are a good side based on X. Whereas
I feel like they wouldn't just do it like, in a sense, bring Liverpool along of like, you know, 10 years ago where they were the team that was in 8th or whatever, you know what I mean? And it's that they're genuinely not a contender. But I feel like if they did it on this UEFA coefficient thing where, because I think every team in every league is ranked somewhere. I mean, maybe they don't bother with like anything below the Premiership, you know what I mean, Championship and all that. I don't doubt they do it with them, but if they are ranking a lot of these teams depending on their wins and who they're beating, very much like you see rugby or footballs, they've got their the internationals have got a ranking too, haven't they? Who's the number one team in the world at the moment, depending on who they've beaten. If they look at that and they go, well, that team probably usually would have made it in, and they've just been unfortunate one year. I don't think that's a case of, okay, you're part of the big boys club and you can never leave it, but it at least brings that safety net in if they, because at the end of the day, you see clubs like Barca, Real, Atletico, there's not a chance any of them are going to miss out because there's no other good teams in their leagues. But when you go over to Italy and you see maybe Juventus have gone off a little bit, but there's at least 5 other teams that are genuinely competing for. I mean, one of their teams made it to the semi-finals last year, but when was the last time you saw a team from Spain that wasn't Atletico, Real or Barca make it into the latter stages of the Champions League knockouts? You just don't, because they're not as good. So, you know what I mean? You have these more competitive leagues where, I mean, you even go to the Premier League. It's like, the Premier League has at least 6 teams every year that could do well in the Champions League. Maybe the 6th isn't going to be amazing, but they're going to do better than quite a lot of these other nations are going to do. So I do quite like the idea of having a sort of safety net for some teams, but I also get what you're saying, where it seems a little bit of a big boys club, don't let anybody else in.
Yes, yeah, I guess that's what I mean. I still think that's probably a better way of doing it than the European Super League, where the clubs decide, we are the elite and therefore this is what we do. I guess it would depend on what, because I guess what you've put there is probably like a very simplified version of what they could do. And, like you said, every team, I guess, is ranked. So, yeah. And I guess there's an argument for, as well, sometimes there's I've literally said it in this podcast, don't bother with, well, I didn't say this, but as in, like, lots of teams will say, we're not going to bother with Europa League, or we're going for the league, so we're just going to not really be that bothered about the Champions League, where, if there's the potential that, say, get into the semi-final is meaning that you get into it next year or don't get into it next year if you're outside of the top 4, I guess it encourages teams to kind of play better.
People have complained about Klopp dropping 7 players almost because it looks more like he's favouring the Champions League approach and trying to beat Leipzig and then go and try and win the whole thing to get in. But if, in a sense, I imagine most managers wouldn't do that because it's a big risk because you've got a long way to go in the tournament. But in a sense, if you say to somebody, looking at the UEFA coefficient, if you make it to the semi-finals, you'll have enough points to make it into that 4-team safety net. Teams might go, you know what, actually, we will give this a go just to see if we can get that far. We're not anticipating to win the whole thing, but you see a team like Atalanta, they may not make it into the top 4 of Italy every year, but they made it to the semi-finals last year, and it's like they don't see any benefit to that. Same for Ajax when they got to there a few years ago. It's like they don't really see any benefit to that, and it can cost them in the league if they don't focus on that, and they could miss out. And it's like, well, if you have this 4-place safety net, all of a sudden it gives clubs that perhaps maybe don't have the stature to win the whole thing a chance of making it in at least next year for the money.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is I don't mind the idea of this kind of 4-team safety net, as we're calling it, as long as it's a good way of deciding who those 4 teams are. That's what I'm saying, really.
And one of the other big benefits is the fact that you've got you're playing 10 games rather than 6 in the knockouts that we currently have, and it's not against 3 teams home and away, it's against 10 teams, and you'll play one of them, you know what I mean? You won't play each one home and away, you just play them once, and it's random if you're going to play home or away. So it's like you just get more big teams playing more big teams rather than, who cares about a game between Liverpool and Maribor? Nobody. Because it's inconsequential. I'm sure Maribor loves it, but at the same time, broadcasters don't care for games like that. I don't think anybody turns on BT Sport to watch Liverpool play Maribor. It's the same.
Apart from Liverpool.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And that's the thing, it's small. It's the same way with the Premier League, where they've got this problem where they're like, okay, we've got to give everyone a sort of quota of games. So you end up watching Brighton against Newcastle on a Sunday night. It's like, Why on earth would I want to watch Brighton versus Newcastle? You won't. You don't. But they're trying to fill the quota, and they go, well, we'll just have a couple of dogs every year just to.
Well, I remember the first day of the season that I think one of the opening games was Liverpool versus Leeds, which was a thriller, and at that point, like, we didn't know how well West Ham were going to do, and then it was followed by. So it was Liverpool versus Leeds, and then Newcastle versus West Ham.
Yeah, and instantly you're like,
oh,
good
that's
gracious. It's like all anybody wants to see is the top teams playing the top teams all the time. Like,
unless you support one of the not top teams.
Obviously. But when you see nations, teams like Bayern and Real Madrid and Barca and Atletico all playing in the Champions League, but they get about 4 good games if they're lucky, and it's like. It's such a disappointment, especially when you get a group of death.
Yeah.
That kind of sucks all of the, that means there'll be 6 good games. And then in about 4 of the other ones, no one cares. It's like, so when you've got 10 games against 10 teams across 36, and, I mean, I don't know how they'll work it out, whether they sort of periodically, maybe if you're first and whatever, I'm trying to think, maybe first, fourth, 7th, you know what I mean? Maybe something like that, where it's like, okay, all of those will play each other once, or you know what I mean. So it's like first has the benefit of not playing harder teams all the way down or something. But I don't know how they'll do it. But it'd just be good to see some more good teams play each other. I mean, the Nations League I love as an alternative to friendlies because it pits good international teams against each other. So I think it's a good idea, this Champions League reform. And I'd happy to see it replace the current format. Should we move on to our shock of the week?
Let's move on to our shock of the week. My shock of the week was Jano Black's double save against Real Madrid.
Now, I haven't seen this, so you have to describe it to me.
It was... I to be honest, it was just really, really good. And the thing with Jano Black is because we don't see a lot of him, it's quite easy to forget how good he is. Like,
he's one of the few keepers who's got more clean sheets than goals conceded, I think.
As in, like, for me, you've got... I think in terms of the top goalkeepers in the world, I think you've probably got Alisson, Jano Black.
I don't... Yeah. I was going to say, you can't even put De Gea in there anymore. He's not...
Not anymore.
I'll be honest, I think Ederson's creeping towards the top.
Oh, I don't know. I feel I'm not saying who's better out of Jano Black and Alisson, because I do feel like as good as Jano Black is, he does have a defensive unit in front of him, whereas Liverpool haven't always been, even under Klopp, with Van Dijk, there's still been times where we've not been the best at keeping out goals, kind of thing. Whereas that's basically Atletico's thing, isn't it? As being a solid defensive side. So yeah, I don't know really. It's a bit of a tricky one, but yeah, Jano Black's double save was very, very good.
My shock of the week was Liverpool losing to Fulham. I mean, I think you mentioned to me after it happened, it's not as such a shock anymore because of how Liverpool are playing, but when you just look at it,
it's a shock just based on the fact that it's Fulham versus
Fulham
Liverpool.
Just beat Liverpool. That's the first time Klopp has lost at home to a newly promoted side, and that's Fulham. So at early stage of the season, when we did that sort of, who do you think's going to make top 4? We also did who do you think's going to get relegated. I think we both categorically said Fulham are going down because they can't do anything, and they are creeping up slowly throughout the table, and they just beat the reigning champions of the Premier League. Incredible to think. Incredible. So should we go on to the F1?
Yeah, can we stop talking about Liverpool now, please?
One more thing.
No, stop, make it stop. I'm still sat here wearing my Liverpool shirt though, guys. Just saying, still sat here wearing my Liverpool shirt. This is what sport is all about. Anyway, should we talk about a bit of F1? Do a bit of a livery review?
Yeah, let's do that.
Oh, well, actually, should we talk about the safety cars first?
Well, I don't mind, because, I mean, I don't really... Well, yeah, let's talk about the safety cars. I mean, I was just about to talk about them. I said I don't mind, but yeah, let's talk about them.
Well, I guess there's not a lot to say, really. We've got Mercedes and Aston Martin.
It used to be just Mercedes, and I'll be honest, I don't like the Mercedes there. I don't know. It's a bit in your face, the red, I think. But I think the Aston Martin looks really cool.
Yeah, I don't know how they decide. I mean, there must be some sort of sponsorship thing.
Yeah, they'll just be paid to do it. It wouldn't surprise me if every other safety car's the other, the other brand.
I mean, it's interesting as well, actually, because Mercedes do, in terms of road cars now, it's going off a little bit from sport, but I think I'm right in saying that the amount of components / ownership that Mercedes have in Aston Martin has increased.
All right.
So I wonder perhaps if there's a bit more of a kind of, Aston Martin have said, okay, we'll pay you, Mercedes, to do more components for us, but in return we want a bit of this.
Oh, I see, a bit more branding.
Did you get what I mean? You scratch our back, we'll scratch yours kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Which is perhaps why they've got the old Aston Martin Vantage there, alongside the Mercedes AMG. I believe that's the GTR.
Is that the one which is when doors go up vertical rather than horizontal?
No, it used to. This is the replacement for that car. It's not a gull wing.
Ah, okay. Not as cool. To be honest, though,
not as cool.
If there's a crash like Grosjean's and you've got a safety car coming, I don't think anybody's really looking for the panache of the winged doors. I mean, they're like, just get out the car.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Just get out the car, yeah. Absolutely. So, those are the safety cars. I guess there's not a lot really. On a very fundamental note, I guess we hope we don't see them too much.
Well, I don't know.
Because a safety car is never a good sign.
It's never a good sign, but every time I see one, something inside of me smiles going, this just made the race really spicy. Someone's pitting, someone isn't pitting, and someone's got it wrong.
It's just, the spice.
Yeah.
No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Right, should we move on to some of the liveries?
Yeah. Well, we got 9 of the 10 that have been released now. I believe
and
the Ferrari comes out.
Ferrari.
Yeah, the Ferrari comes out on Wednesday, I believe. Is that right?
Which, yeah, but let's be fair, it's red.
Yeah.
So
it's red, touch of black, maybe a little bit of white. Who knows?
Who knows, yeah. There's not a lot else to say there. So, how do we want to do this? Do we want to do each one rating 1 to 10, or are we just going to rank them 1 to 10?
Let's rate them 1 to 10.
Rate them 1 to 10.
Rate them 1 to
10. 10 being perfection, 1 being I could have done that myself.
Well, if we're talking about I could have done that myself, let's start with Red Bull, because I could have done that myself. It's an exact copy and paste job.
It is a copy and paste.
Yeah.
But it's not a bad livery, though. That's the thing.
It's not, but it's also really uninspiring in the sense of... I don't know if you've been following on the F1 Twitter page, but they've been showing lots of not mock ones, but ones that
concepts.
Yeah, concept liveries, and there have been some really good ones around, even for some of the newer ones which I thought are better. But there's a lot of good ones for the Red Bull. There's a lot you can do with what's on the car, and they've gone, nah, build a brand, just stick with the same. And I'm a bit disappointed by it, if I'm honest.
What would you rate it out of 10?
On appearance, I mean, it's a solid 7, but on how wowed am I going into this New Year's, or 1, because they haven't done anything. What about you?
Yeah. Well, I would say it's like a 5, to be honest. I've never been a massive fan of the old Red Bull livery.
Fair enough.
Never been a massive fan.
Well, should we go for another one which
moving...
happened last... Well, we've already discussed on the previous, is the McLaren.
Yeah, I mean, I like the McLaren, I'll be honest. Again, there's not a massive amount of change from last season. No. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad livery. But I guess it just makes it that little bit less exciting.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I like the McLaren livery less than I like the Red Bull one. I'm looking more like a 5. But in terms of, again, copy and paste from last year, maybe give it a 3. They did some little touches which are different, but...
Yeah.
Not...
I mean, I prefer it to the Red Bull.
Okay.
But yeah, nothing spectacular. I'd probably say like a 6 or 7 maybe. Out of 10.
Now,
not a lot happening really.
Now the last one, which was released last week, which we mentioned, I think, was it 3 or there might have been 4 that were released last week?
It was 4. I think it was Alpha Tauri and the Alfa Romeo,
yes.
I think, wasn't it, that we'd had by last week.
But this is the first one which we're going to talk about, which is genuinely changed. And I like it. The AlphaTauri.
AlphaTauri,
Yeah.
I'm guessing. Yeah, I'm a big fan. I tell you what, I really like, and I've said this last time. I love the colour match wheels. I don't know whether there's been a regulation change, whether I missed it, or whether something is not going to happen. But I've noticed like a lot of teams have done the kind of colour match wheels this season.
Yeah, I guess if you
And
can
I
get them to match, you may as well. Like,
yeah, I think it looks great. As in, like a lot of the teams just kind of go for black. You know, makes sense because it kind of falls in with the livery. But as in AlphaTauri, you've kind of gone for the white colour match wheels. I think it looks fantastic, to be honest with you.
yeah, they've chucked the hard tyre.
I really like it. They have chucked the hard tyre on as well. Just an extra bit of white. I mean, as long as it didn't go with the hyper soft for the pink.
I see what you mean about the wheels.
Yeah,
I thought you meant.
literally.
I now see what you mean by the wheels. I was thinking.
No, I literally
I
mean the wheels, like the alloy.
Got you. Yeah. Oh, you know what? That's actually really cool. I hadn't noticed that. That's really cool.
And if you look at like a lot of the others, so the majority of the others seem to have just gone with black, which is a little bit boring. But for whatever reason, AlphaTauri are like, nah, gonna go with white.
I tell you what, the Red Bull actually, I think is more of a silver alloy colour.
Yeah, this is just kind of a boggo.
But yeah,
I'm sure there's some
That's-
Adrian Newey's there in the background, like, oh, it saves you 1/10 of a gram.
Yeah. But I mean, I'd be honest, I preferred the AlphaTauri. I mentioned this last week, but I preferred the AlphaTauri one of last season. I do like what they've done with the trim. I'd probably give it a 6.
There's another thing that I want to say about this as
Go
well. They've also, you can't really see it on that picture, but they have changed the nose.
Oh, have they?
So last season they had kind of like a flat platypus nose. Now they've kind of got a bit of more of a pointed nose.
Ooh.
So yeah, be interesting to see, a bit of an aerodynamic change. Who knows? But yeah, I would say for me this is like an 8.
An 8.
I'm giving it a
6.
I really like it.
But in terms of difference, I'm actually giving it a 5 because in large, all they've done is flip around the blue and the white. Like last year, the bits were white, which were blue, and the bits which were blue were white. But it does look smart and nice.
It does look smart. Should we do the Alfa Romeo next? Because we've already seen the Alfa. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not. It's just kind of a bit meh. Much of a muchness to me.
If I'm honest, I liked it more when I originally saw it. It has died off.
It looks like an Alfa Romeo.
It does.
Not a lot more that I'm going to say on this. I think this is probably like a 5, maybe.
I'm just going to have a quick look at what the Alfa Romeo... I should put a bit more on my Google search than Alfa Romeo 2020. F1 2020 makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah, Alfa Romeo 2020 will bring you up an awful lot of searches.
Oh yeah, that is pretty much the same car. Apart from they flip the red and the white around a little bit. It's alright. I'd be honest, I prefer that more than the AlphaTauri. I did originally. I don't think I do anymore. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10, how much I like it. But a 5 out of 10 as well in terms of how much they've switched around.
Fair enough. Right, Mercedes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm going to put it out there. I was a bit disappointed when I saw this.
Yeah, it doesn't look nice. I don't know why they've done that sort of grey-white thing at the back.
Yeah, what's with the AMG thing? I don't understand it. Like, did somebody discover how to use copy and paste on paint?
Yeah.
Like, it just looks weird.
Well,
and the thing that I don't quite get, to be fair, the picture may not be doing it justice. It looks like white rather than silver.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, has somebody gone, you know what? The black looks cooler than what the silver ever did. And they've gone, well, we need some silver. But because no one can tell that it's silver, let's make it almost white. And it's like, it just doesn't look any good, does it?
I mean, perhaps I'm being a bit harsh, but I feel like the teal, the black, and the silver, those are some good colours to be working with. And they've somehow made it look kind of rubbish.
You mentioned the wheel on the AlphaTauri. I feel like they have made the wheel on this one particularly black. Like, I look at the Alfa Romeo and it's got a little bit of yellow on it, and I look at the... What's that? in the McLaren, theirs is black, but I feel like the Mercedes one does look
the
really
thing is,
black.
I can't work out whether this is just like some sort of an illustration, like a computer generated image. It's a bit of a weird image. I'm going to see if I can find another one that's perhaps a little bit less, a little bit more clear.
And I'll be honest, I feel like the Ineos bit at the top was cooler last year as well. It almost blended into the black, but on this one it's like here's almost like a stamp from a postcard, just red there, red. Line it off, done, red. There we go. We've got Ineos ticked off. And it's like, oh, it doesn't.
I mean, like when I've seen the images of the car from last season, it just looks so much sleeker. It looks so much better than
well, that's the thing.
Than this year.
The black looks cooler than the silver, but they've gone, well, we haven't. Well, they could just stick with the black, but at the end of the day, they're the silver arrows, so they're gonna have to get silver on it some way. And
yeah, but they could have done it so much better than that, though. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think it would be quite as bad if they didn't have all of those weird AMG stickers, just like sticker marked, sticker bombed everywhere. It just looks a bit odd.
Yeah.
There we are. So for me, I'm going to give this probably a 4. I think it's probably the worst out of the ones we've discussed so far.
I'm going to give it a 3. I don't like it. But in terms of difference from last year, I mean, I give it a 4. I don't think they've really done anything apart from, as you were saying, a copy and paste job with the AMG logo at the back and made it all white. Apart from that, it's the same. I mean, I don't know if was that blue stripe the same across the middle of the livery.
I mean, I don't know whether it was exactly the same. It's always been.
But it's a lot more in your face,
prominent.
and I do like that.
Let's have a look.
I do like that.
Oh no, it was on the car last year.
Oh, was it? Never mind then.
Yeah, it seems to have been in the same position.
I'm glad they've kept it at the very least. I mean, to be honest, they could have made
Yes.
that the silver bit. That would have been content with just that.
Well, the thing is that's the Patronus colours. Here we are. Anyway, Williams.
Now, I commend them for doing something different.
Yes.
In terms of how much I actually like it, that's another question. to be honest,
That's such a good summary. That's like the best summary ever. I commend them for trying, but do I like it? I am not sure.
it just... I can't... It just doesn't... Nothing goes. It's like they've got this almost bird poo white on the front with a tinge of orange around the exterior of that, and it's like, well, what are you trying to trim there? It's like, that doesn't look good.
Bird poo white, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard that it's meant to be kind of harking back to some of their, their heyday, as in like traditionally when Williams were doing well, their colours were kind of blue, white and yellow. I think what doesn't help this is that they don't seem to have a main sponsor yet.
Yeah. It does look like it's missing something.
Like, kind of behind the side pods, it looks a little bit bare.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one thing I will say about this though, and I guess this is something we're going to come on to with the next car, I like the fact that this sponsor hasn't influenced, like, don't get me wrong, a Red Bull is a bit different because the team is named after the sponsor, but they haven't let their sponsors influence what colour they're going to design the car.
Yeah, that is good.
Which I quite like that, to be honest with you. And I think the colours look nice. It's just a bit of a weird design.
It just...
I prefer it to the Merc.
Do you? Now, see,
I do.
Let me go back up to the Merc. To be honest, the back of that Merc is hideous. But...
Yes.
I don't know. I feel like this Williams car is just as hideous. I mean, that black bit towards the back end, and then it almost sort of... It's like really jagged. It goes down from where the number is, then it goes straight left, then it goes back down straight, then back left straight. Like, there's no blend, there's no curves to it. It's just...
I mean, again, I'm not sure how I feel about that angle of that car, because you're kind of at a very... It would be nice to see what it looks like from the side, like just directly from the side on.
Yeah, perhaps it looks a bit...
But I agree with you. It does look a little bit weird.
Thing is, I wouldn't mind if they did white and blue, white and black and blue, orange and blue. But having black, blue, 2 shades of blue, that is, white and orange on one car doesn't...
Is it black though, or is it navy? It looks like a navy to me.
Really? Oh, the base of the car...
Right to the back,
right
with the
back.
6s.
No, that's a black, surely.
Is it?
I'm going to double
I don't
check.
know, I feel like that's kind of... Oh, no, you are right. Yeah, it is. Yeah, that is a bit odd.
Yes. Oh, that's 2020. looking up for 2021. See what it does look like from the side. Okay, no, from the side, it's not quite as jagged as I was saying. Actually, that photo actually looks quite nice. But
I guess the one thing I would say about this, they've got I know what you're saying about the black, but I think white, yellow, light blue, and royal blue, they are good colours. They do work well.
Fair enough.
So I think at the very least, I think it's got good colours. I just think the design's a bit funky.
Yeah. To be honest, I'd probably have the blue going over the front of the nose instead. I think I wouldn't put so many colours on one vehicle. It just seems a little bit overkill.
Fair enough.
But yeah, that's my thoughts on that. I'd probably give it I give it a 5. I give it a 5. And to be honest,
I'd give it a 5.
I'd give him a 7 for changing it up, but it hasn't worked.
7 for effort. There we are. Haas.
Team USA with Team Russia as the flag. Doesn't quite work.
Yeah, I do not... And I think I'm right in saying that Ural Kali, their logo is green.
Is it?
Like, I think I'm right in saying that, because...
I got a feeling the reason it's got the Russian flag is because Mazepin isn't a Russian driver this year. He has to go under that neutral flag.
Yeah, Ural Kali's logo is green and red.
See, it just doesn't make any sense, this car. Like, it doesn't make any sense in terms of sponsors. Yeah.
But if they have the green, it would almost look like a Castrol tribute. Like the old Castrol liveries. I don't know whether you've seen any of those, but it would look like that. White, green, red. That's kind of classic Castrol.
Oh, fair enough.
And that would look quite nice. I don't know whether perhaps there's some sort of... wouldn't surprise me if Ferrari have some sort of trademarking rights on Italian flags, knowing them. Which is perhaps why they've done it. Although this does seem to be like a very overt attempt to be like, we will put the Russian flag on the car for our Russian driver.
Though, is if they did a German version for Schumacher. Because...
Well, they could have done a half and half job. They could have had one side was like blue, red and white, and then the other side was
black,
red, black and yellow. And it would have looked amazing, I think.
And that's the thing. If they had gone out and done the German flag and a Russian flag versions of this car, I think I'd give them a solid 8 or 9 in terms of how cool it looks. But the fact they've just gone Russian, it almost seems too corporate. It seems like they've really tried something.
When you think about it, Haas's colours have been different almost every year they've been in F1.
They were black.
They had the rich energy phase where it was black and gold.
Mm-hmm.
Last season they had what would probably be seen as traditional Haas colours, black, white and red. Mm-hmm. Now they've got blue, white and red. And I guess this is what I'm saying. I don't like it when cars' full liveries is almost designed around their sponsor. I hate it. I think it kind of draws away from...
Especially when it's not their main sponsor. Haas is the team. Why haven't Haas decided... Like, Mercedes were the Silver Arrows. Until they did the Black Lives Matter black livery, and they were like, that looks really cool, we're going to stick with it. That makes sense. But Haas have gone, let's just compromise on everything to make one guy who's paying for his son to drive for us happy.
Even Mercedes have integrated, like, the Petronas sponsor into their design.
It doesn't dominate, though.
But it's not the primary thing. So I don't like this livery. I think... This is like another 4. I'm not a fan.
I'd give it a 5. I'll put it in the batch of 5s.
The only thing I like about it is the retro numbering. That's pretty much the only thing I like about it.
Fair. Yeah.
Right. Now we're moving on to...
Oh, this is a beaut.
The 2 best looking liveries.
An absolute beaut.
So, Alpine and Aston Martin.
I'll be honest.
We'll discuss them both at the same time because they're both glorious.
I've seen a really cool concept Aston Martin one where they put the wings of the Aston Martin where it says Cognizant on the side, so one half, one wing, one side, and then the other half on the other, which I thought was better than what they've done here. But I will say that this livery is glorious.
It is nice, but I was kind of hoping that it would be more of a kind of British racing green than like this tealy green. However, it still looks immense.
Yeah.
It still looks really, really smart.
It's just... to be honest, though, when you compare it to all the others,
simple.
Like, if Mercedes were their all black this year, and you had this car, you'd almost have, like, iconic-looking cars all over. It's like stuff that you go, that's a classic. That just looks like... You've got the papaya orange, you've got a Red Bull, you've got what Alpha Tauri you're trying to do. And it's like, some of them are really cool, and it's a shame that some of them have sort of compromised on it. But that is a glorious car, that Aston Martin. And then you got the Alpine. I think the only...
Oh, well, so we... like, Aston Martin, for me, 10 out of 10, I would say. Well, no.
I'm giving it an 8.
I'm gonna give it like an 8.5 or 9.
Ooh, okay.
Because I saw... I don't know whether it was a concept or another leak, and it had, you know, like where it's got that red stripe?
Yeah. Did it go all the way to the back instead and start... and where?
No, it was that stripe, but it was like lime green. And it looked amazing. It looked really, really nice. And like I said, I was kind of hoping for more of a British racing green than
I can understand though why they've kept
green.
The pink, because it's almost like a homage to we were Racing Point first and foremost.
Well, it's probably related to BWT, isn't it? Because that's their.
That's probably more the reason actually.
There is a reason for it. I think there's a sponsorship thing.
Fair.
But yeah, what would you give it? Oh yeah, you said
8. You
said like an 8.
And to be honest, though, I give it a 10 for something new, because it is a completely different car and it actually works really well.
I mean, it helps that they're a completely different team, but you know.
Yeah, exactly. Same for Alpine.
Yeah, Alpine. They've done a good job with this. To be fair,
I have to get some more angles of this.
They have done a good job with it, and the thing was as well is like nobody really knew what their base colour was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people thought it was going to be like black with blue and red accents. A lot of people thought it was going to be just blue with bits of black on it. They've kind of gone for blue with red as their main colours, which is quite nice as well because it's the tricolore, the French flag, because obviously Alpine is French because Renault.
I tell you what, all the photos I'm finding online, that bluey looking thing at the top is actually black.
Which bit?
Well, I don't know if it's like a really dark navy, but you know where it looks blue? Apart from the stripe going on the Alpine bit, everything else is black. Which is shocking me, really. Surely that's not... That photo looks like it's predominantly blue on the top, but if you... I mean, I just had a quick look to find some other angles, and it's almost entirely black. Unless it's like a dark navy, perhaps.
No, that was... those were like the leaked liveries, I think.
Oh, that's 14 for
so
the first. Yeah, that's an old one, I see.
That's the thing. So those are the ones that I had seen. A lot of people thought it was going to be black as the base, which also looks nice. But I think I probably slightly prefer the one that they went with.
I agree. I do like that blue. See, I can't tell. There's a blue light on that image that we've got, and I think that is slightly obscuring what colour this is. There's got to be a normal photo. Oh, to be fair, on the ones of it in action, they look blue. Oh, that's a good blue, that.
Yeah.
It's like a royal... Oh, is it a royal blue? It's dark, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really smart. I don't think I like it quite as much as the Aston Martin one. Because there seems to be a little bit more going on. But I still think it's nice. I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, that is actually quite a strong blue. I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of how blue that is. I actually prefer... If that was all black, I think I'd have preferred it. To be honest, I think a lot of cars look cooler black. I don't know if you've acknowledged that from the fact that I thought both the Mercedes, the Haas, both should have gone back to black. But I don't know. I think I'd have preferred it if it was all-ish black. You know, I'd keep the blue stripe perhaps, but it's good. What really helps the car is that they've got good-looking logos all over it. They're not sponsored by somebody who's got a horrific logo, and you're like, how on earth do you incorporate that? You know what I mean? They're all just clean.
It's weird. It's almost like they've picked logos that look French.
Yeah. They've gone, what's the
they're saying
most
that.
classic?
Saying that, if you look at the side, they've got 3 logos. One of them is Castle Edge, then they've got Alpine, and then above that they've got Renault E-Tech. So...
It is all French.
When I say they've picked ones that are French, a lot of them are French.
But yeah, I'd probably...
So I would...
Probably give it a 7 out of 10 in terms of how much I like it.
Ooh, I feel that's harsh.
But I'll give it an 8 out of 10 in terms of what's new.
So you say that that's the same as the Red Bull livery?
Did I give that a 7? Yeah.
I'm pretty sure
To
you gave
be
that a
fair,
7.
yeah, I stand by that.
Ooh.
Not obviously
Not harsh,
this
mate.
is new. This is a new livery, so it's going to take people more of a wow. But if you I'd put that alongside the Red Bull in terms of how much I like them.
Okay, fair
Because
enough.
I've actually gone off the Red Bull a little bit. Before I used to
Yeah.
like it more, but it's draining on me a little bit that they haven't done anything. So
Yeah, I've never been a massive fan of the Red Bull livery, to be honest. I don't think it's my favourite.
that's fair enough.
And I guess in other news, Portimao's back.
That it is.
Moving on in F1 slightly. So that's our review of the car liveries. Let us know what you think. Perhaps comment down below if you think we're stupid. But that's what we think. Sorry. So Portimao's back. That's confirmed. So that's the third race of the calendar, I think.
Yeah, it's very early on.
It's
in
the
the
race
season.
it's the one that was kind of listed as TBC for ages. There were rumours for a while, weren't there, that it was going to be Portimao, but now it's been confirmed, which is exciting. Purely from the point of view that it shows that they are perhaps willing to accept new tracks, which would be nice, mix things up a little bit. And Portimao was a good one last year, I thought.
I mean, still, I think the track they need to bring back from last year. I think it was I can't remember how it was. It was the German one, though, basically. Was that the one with that almost hairpin first turn?
Yeah. Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit.
Eiffel Grand Prix. That was what the title was. I loved that one the most. But yeah, it's good to see that they are not going with the same old, because having loads of Tuchel tracks, as we said in the past, is a bit boring. So having lots of changes is fun.
And they could have quite easily done like another, like where they did Silverstone twice, didn't they? And they did Austria twice. They could have quite easily just gone, we'll do another track twice. But they were like, no, we're going to go to Portimao.
I'm pretty sure, I'm right in saying that the Top Gear, now Grand Tour presenters, all said Portimao was their favourite track. It's either that or Mugello. I can't remember which one, but I thought it was Portimao. So,
may well be Portimao.
Yeah.
May well be.
There we go.
It's a good circuit. There we are. Should we round up with our stats of the week?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, my stat is that yesterday was the first time that both Liverpool and Man City have lost at home in the Premier League on the same day since March the 3rd, 2007.
That is a long time.
When Liverpool lost to... Yeah, it is a long time. Where Liverpool lost to Man United under Rafael Benitez and Man City lost to Wigan under Stuart Pearce.
That's actually quite surprising. It's a long time.
It's a good start, isn't it?
Mal, how many times do you reckon they play on the same day? That's a
Well, bearing in mind as well, that's lost at home.
Yeah. Well,
So they both have to be playing at home and lost.
But the thing about the same day was, very rarely you know what I mean? Because they're two big drawers in terms of television audience,
Yeah.
I bet one of them gets claimed for the Sunday night and one of them gets claimed for the Saturday night. So I bet they have frequent. Maybe it's happened that they've both lost on the same weekend, but same day. Yeah, same day. My stat of the week was that among the 67 managers that Pep Guardiola has faced more than 3 times, I don't think that's too obscure. I think there's quite a lot of managers that he would have faced more than 3 times. That's in all competitions as a top flight boss. Only Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has beaten him more often than he has lost to him. I think that's quite incredible.
That is quite a good stat.
That
is quite a good stat, to be fair.
Very good.
Putting it out there. There we are. That's another episode of the Down to the Wire podcast. Thank you for listening if you have listened through to this point. If you're listening on YouTube, why not give us a follow? Let's try that again. If you're listening on YouTube, why not subscribe?
Yeah.
If you're listening on Spotify, why not give us a follow? We're on Anchor, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Casts. I think that's all of them. Nailed it. Good stuff. Pleasure as always, Jack, and we shall be back next week to update you with the latest and greatest in sport. Thanks for listening.